Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Salebox. As promised, this is the sales for Steam on the 30th of December 2011, which will end on the 31st of December 2011 at 10 p.m. GMT. I did say I'd try and get these out a bit earlier, so here is a start. Let's get going, shall we? No point in hanging around. There are sales and deals to be had, so let's have a look. The first game is Universe Sandbox. That's 75% off at $2.50, €2.50, £1.74, or $2 Australian.50. This is not so much a game as it is a sandbox. It's pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a playset. It's something that you can muck about with. And in terms of sheer curiosity, if you've got any interest in astronomy or just the universe in general, then you might want to have a look at Universe Sandbox, because there's a lot of fun to be had in that respect. But bear in mind, it is not a game. There is no real point to it. It is just a sandbox to muck about in. But for a couple of bucks, it's certainly worth a little bit of experimentation if you're into that kind of thing. Grand Theft Auto Complete Pack, 75% off. That is $12.49, €7.49. Good price for the Europeans. Good price for the UK guys as well at £5 and 17 Aussie dollars 49. There's also the Grand Theft Auto 4 Complete Edition, which will set you back slightly less than that. Funnily enough, that appears to be only cheaper for the Americans. The Complete Pack is cheaper than the Grand Theft Auto 4 Complete Edition in Europe and the UK, so definitely pick up the Complete Packs. That comes with GTA 1, 2, and 3, as well as San Andreas, Vice City, and of course Grand Theft Auto 4 and episodes from Liberty City. That's an amazingly good value pack for what's in it, honestly. Those games are great. The problem that GTA 4 had for the longest time, it still does have on certain systems, is that it doesn't really run very well. It wasn't a well-optimized port. Thankfully, the episodes from Liberty City did improve that significantly, and if you want even the slightest reason to pick up GTA 4 right now, you need to go and look for the realism mods. The one you should be having a look at is IC Enhancer, the ENB graphic mod. Go and have a look for that. It is unbelievable, the kind of fidelity they've managed to get out of that game. Highly, highly recommended for that price. There's no real doubt about that. And considering the fact that tech has advanced several years since then, you should be okay running this on your PC, even if it's not particularly high grade. Do try and check out these system specifications, however, before purchasing, as obviously if you're trying to run this thing on a netbook, you're probably going to have some issues. Magic the Gathering, Jewels of the Planeswalker 2012, 60% off at $4, €3.59, £2.79, and $4 Australian dollars. So what this is it's not so much a cut-down version of Magic the Gathering in the sense that it is Magic the Gathering. It is straight-up Magic the Gathering, but it doesn't have a deck builder. You can customize a deck by adding cards that you unlock, but it's very much a limited editor. You can't completely create your own deck. That's something obviously Wizards of the Coast didn't want. But if you have any curiosity about Magic the Gathering, it is a fun card game, and this is a good way to get started without actually spending any money, really. I mean, this is the cost of, like, 1.5 booster packs. It's, like, what, $3 for a booster pack these days, if I remember correctly, so this is a reasonable way to get started. It's still a lot of fun. It's good fun in multiplayer. It's got a good campaign mode as well. I think you'll get some enjoyment out of this if you have a passing interest in CCGs. But bear in mind, if you're already a Magic the Gathering fan, chances are you're not going to get a lot of satisfaction out of this game because the deck building is non-existent. So it is worth avoiding on that basis. Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena, 75% off. That's €5, €5, £3.74, or $5 Australian dollars. Wow, this game is great, and I do mean seriously great, and perhaps you've avoided it because you thought it was just a tie-in game, some licensed movie title. No, this is one of the best movie tie-in, quote-unquote, games ever. It really, really is. Assault on Dark Athena is the improved version of Escape from Butcher Bay. It contains Escape from Butcher Bay in a remastered, enhanced version, and it also has the Assault on Dark Athena campaign. It's basically a stealth FPS with the character of Riddick as the guy that you play. There is some ranged combat in it. There's a lot of melee combat in it, a lot of stabby. Original voice actor Vin Diesel does actually do that. In fact, there are even some dialogue choices and things like that. Chronicles of Riddick is amazing. It really is. It's absolutely incredible. If you've not tried it out, then this is a great time to start. For God's sake, it's only $5. It's a brilliant price for this. And this is effectively 2 games. It's Butcher Bay and Dark Athena in one pack. And both of them are the same graphical fidelity. They remastered the original game, so it's wonderful. It's by Starbreeze, who brought you The Darkness. They are a great company, and they produce some fantastic FPS. Nelson Tethers, Puzzle Agent 2, both 75% off. Not very expensive, these are by Telltale. The original game will set you back $1.24, €1.11, 99 pence or $1 Australian $1.24, and you can double that up for the price of Puzzle Agent 2. They're not really point-and-click games, they're just story-driven puzzlers. It's kind of like, probably the best comparison would be, let's have a think. Oh yes, Professor Layton. That's the closest I think you can get with this. It's got a rather odd sense of humor. I played it a bit, I wasn't really a big fan of it, but then again, I'm not a puzzle fan, so I can't really recommend it one way or the other, but these are dirt cheap. So if you are looking for straight-up puzzle games, I'm not even talking a game where puzzling is part of it, it is just a set of puzzles with a storyline tying it together. And it's pretty cool in that regard. If you're looking for that, then you might want to look into it. Certainly not the best that Telltale have ever put out, though. It's by no means in their AAA. Civilization 5, Game of the Year edition, that's 66% off, taking it down to $17, €13.59, £10.19, and the Australians get shafted with $30.59 on that one. I gotta say, I didn't like Civ 5 all that much. I really don't. I thought that it lacked character. I think the addition of hexes really didn't help. There was some AI issues and some balance issues with the game early on. Admittedly, most of that has been patched out. I don't like the idea of city-states either. I feel that they are a particularly poor mechanic. I much preferred religion in Civ 4. I think that was a much better mechanic, and honestly, I feel that Civ 4 Beyond the Sword is by far the best Civilization game that's ever come out, ever. So that's something to consider. Civ 5 doesn't really have any mod support because they were looking to sell a lot of DLC, and they released a lot of Civilization packs, which I definitely don't approve of. That was a very cheap way to do things. In fact, it was obvious that they cut content from the original game in order to get some more money squeezed out of it, and I don't like it when games companies do that. I do not like it one little bit. It's not a bad game otherwise, but it's certainly one of the weaker Civilization games. I put it on the level of Civilization 3, for instance, in terms of how good it actually is. And Civilization 3 was not an amazing game. Civ 4 was absolutely incredible, and honestly, I think you should just have a look at that if you haven't already. If you are a Civilization fan, chances are you already own this game anyway. You might get some enjoyment out of it, but personally, as someone that put hundreds of hours into Civ 4, I barely played 5 in Civ 5, and I don't even know why. It did not have what I wanted. It was not a enjoyable game for me whatsoever. There were just too many mechanics that pissed me off. The Command & Conquer game, 75% off. Now, this covers Command & Conquer 3 as well as Red Alert 3, the respective expansions, Tiberian Twilight. Please do not buy Tiberian Twilight. It is absolutely abysmal. They took most of the base building out. It's almost like they tried to get some inspiration from Dota and make it kind of an arena game, and it is bad. Oh my god, the campaign is awful. It's got this persistent multiplayer where you unlock units. It's not a Command & Conquer game. Please do not buy that. On the other hand, Red Alert 3 and Command & Conquer 3 are rather good. Personally, I prefer Command & Conquer 3. I think that's the best of the bunch, and the UK guys get a great deal on this. They get Tiberian Wars for £3.74, where the Americans actually have to pay $7.49, so we get a pretty good deal on that one. Tiberian Wars and Kane's Wrath are a pair of great games. Kane's Wrath is the expansion to Tiberian Wars, and I enjoyed them an awful lot. I think in terms of them being classic Command & Conquer games, they do a stellar job of upholding the franchise. They are great fun. Red Alert 3 I didn't enjoy as much. It did kind of go off the deep end in terms of wackiness. Red Alert 3 is by far the most weird of the 3 games, and they just throw caution to the wind and go crazy with the units. And if that's what you enjoyed Red Alert 4, which I think a lot of people did, there were a lot of very odd units in Red Alert because, of course, it's very much a parallel universe game, then you'll probably enjoy Red Alert 3. Uprising is a single-player expansion pack. It's actually standalone as well, but you can buy them both for the same price, so you might as well just buy the original game here. And it wasn't really highly reviewed as a result. They added new units, but you couldn't use them in multiplayer. There's a challenge mode in that, which is kind of like General's Challenge in Command & Conquer General 0 Hour, but not as good. And the campaign is a bit grindy. They also got some very odd actors in there, including Ric Flair, in order to play one of the generals in that game. Very interesting decision, but there you go. Overall, I didn't enjoy Red Alert 3 as much, and there is one thing I will say about Red Alert 3. They dumbed down the resource mechanics. I don't like that at all. They allowed only one harvester into each resource spot, and a resource spot was basically just a building that you went into, and you got a consistent amount of income. I don't really agree with taking away the economic elements of games in order to focus on the combat. I think that it just dumbs the game down in general, and an RTS is about both of those things. It's not simply about just one. If you want to make a battle game, a tactical battle game, then just take the economy out entirely. But Red Alert 3 went down this kind of middle road that wasn't all that enjoyable. That said, it's still a pretty reasonable RTS. I just prefer CNC3 over that, honestly, in terms of Command & Conquer games. Spacechem, 75% off. That is $2.50, €2.50, £1.74, $2 AUD 50. This is a highly recommended game if you are into puzzles. Personally, I couldn't stand it. Why? Because it's puzzles. I hate puzzles. I have a real problem with that. Basically, the game is about working in a space industry, and you are a reactor engineer working for a company called Spacechem, and you have to solve all of these chemical-based puzzles. I've been told that this is basically one of the best puzzle games of the year, and it's got an awful lot going for it. I would probably rather throw myself off a bridge than play this game, because puzzle games to me simply do not work. Blame the player, not the game in this respect. I am dumb when it comes to puzzles. I can't work them out. Also, the expansion pack, the DLC, I suppose, 63 Corvi, is also 75% off, which takes it down to a paltry price of under $1. So, if you want a real puzzle game, then Spacechem all the way. If you're like me, my god, run 50 miles away from Spacechem. Deus Ex Human Revolution, 66% off. That is $17, €17, £10. The UK guys get a good deal there, or 24 Australian dollars. Ugh, not so good there. As I said, this is one of my favorite games of the year. I believe this came in 6th in my top 10 games of 2011. The DLC, I believe, is also discounted. That's something to consider. The name of the DLC is The Missing Link. That takes it down to a very good price indeed, and makes it absolutely worthwhile. So I would always say get a hold of Deus Ex Human Revolution, because it is so very, very awesome. It is an amazing game. The price is pretty solid as well. Considering this game's only really been out for a few months, it is a great price for a game of this caliber. You're going to have a lot of fun with this. The game has got at least 30 hours of gameplay in it, more if you decide to spend an awful lot of time getting absolutely everything. It is a hub-based FPS with quite an emphasis on stealth and hacking, and it is amazing. It's got a truly fantastic storyline, and I couldn't recommend it more. I think the only issues that I had with it are the boss fights, really, as well as a few minor niggles. Bear in mind that the original Deus Ex was my favorite game of all time, so I'm hypercritical with this game, but I still enjoyed it an awful lot. Super Meat Boy, 75% off. Frustration! Oh god, this is $3.74, €3.49, £2.99, or $3 Australian dollars 74. It's a really great platformer that will make you want to kill yourself. That's the basic, and I do mean the basic gist of this game. If you want any indication of how much rage this game will induce, go and watch my Super Meat Boy Wipeathon 3000 video. Christ. I never want to play that game again. It made me go crazy. But that doesn't mean the game is bad. It's just very, very, very challenging, and you will rage very hard. It is a hyper-tricky platformer. You die in a single hit. It's nuts. It is very crazy in terms of the design. It's got awesome music and plenty of content. Highly recommended. Just be careful about how many keyboards you break. Admittedly, I would recommend just using a controller, because that's what the game was designed for, and the keyboard controls are not quite as good as you would hope. Driver San Francisco, last but by no means least, 50% off. That's $25, €25, £14.99. So the UK guys get a great deal, and 25 Australian dollars. Did a WTF is on this game. It is really unique, honestly. It's kind of a one-trick pony in that respect. I don't think they could ever pull something off like this again. The unique thing is that you can possess a car and a driver, because you start off the game in the first couple of minutes going into a coma, and you suddenly gain superpowers, which allow you to possess different vehicles. And that allows for all sorts of crazy physics-bending stuff, as well as interesting tactics and great side missions. I couldn't recommend this game more. I love it. The only problem I've got with it is the Ubisoft DRM that comes along with it. That is the real issue that I've got, so that might be something you wish to consider. The DRM is in place with Driver San Francisco. Admittedly, they did cut it back. It was just going to be always on, as in if you lost your internet connection, it just stopped you playing the game, but it's online verification on launch now, which, honestly, you're buying Steam games, you kind of have to do that anyway for the majority of titles, so I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be, and they did certainly cut that back a bit. The multiplayer's also got an awful lot going for it, so I would, without question and without hesitation, recommend that if you're into arcadey driving games with a unique twist. which is exactly what this is. It's an open-world arcadey driving game with various side missions, car upgrades, and all sorts of great stuff. Yes, you can possess a dump truck driver and drive it into the side of a police car and start a side mission if you so desire. It's quite comedic. I rather enjoyed it. Alright folks, there you go. That's the sale box a little bit earlier, so this gives you plenty of time to check out the deals and make your selections. A pretty good sale today for the most part, with a few exceptions. We'll be continuing to do this through to the 2nd, which is when this sale ends. And then I think what's probably going to happen is the sale box will become a weekly thing whereby we round up all of the weekend deals, which is where most of the cool deals end up popping up from. Sounds like a plan. This series has been successful. A lot of people have been watching it, so I think we'll keep it going. I'll see you next time.